otherwise violating civil rights laws, then the Justice Department will come in and take care of that. But this will be an election like every other election. And, you know, I think all of us at some points in our lives have played sports or maybe just played in a schoolyard or a sandbox. And sometimes folks, if they lose, they start complaining that they got cheated.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brock Lawley. I am your fearless host. To my audience, I've missed you. Look, I am very sorry. I have been MIA. Life is just what it is. Yuletide and whatnot. I got some procreation on the horizon to keep it nice and vague. But ladies and gentlemen, nonetheless, here we are. I got to tell you, it's exactly like I predicted, is it not? Every day, the hyperbole, the insanity, and the untethering from reality that we witness on the left is more remarkable than the day prior. Now, there's two sides to this coin, and I think they're both relevant and important. On the one hand, every day the left decides to double down, triple down on the total parade of nonsense that you see. They separate themselves from the will of the 50-state republic that just had an election. So that's, again, what I perceive happening here is just the left's inability. They have an inability to, number one, accept reality, but also to rub shoulders with, have something in common with the thinking of the average man. Leftism has become so elite and so disjointed, and their talking and discourse has been so intellectually inbred and echo chambered that I really think they're just struggling with the consequences of that. Look, you listen to some of these leftist outfits and the way they speak and the way they formulate these opinions and they sort of banter back and forth amongst each other. It unclothes and lays bare every day that they have relished they have been able to survive for years, 10 years, at least. Much longer than that, if you want my opinion, in a world where none of their nonsense had to meet light, none of that darkness had to meet light, none of that sort of incubator kind of conversation and thought pattern and discourse and dialogue ever had to be refined. And now all of a sudden it all came crumbling down like a house of cards in the election, where they find themselves, oh my word, what we say on the Upper East Side isn't what everybody thinks. Oh my word, what we say in the New York Times editorial meetings is not what everybody thinks. And their just inability to connect with that reality is manifesting itself in the most laughable, if you have any intellectual credibility or intellectual honesty at all, the most laughable way possible. However, the other side of that coin is the left, their elitism forces and has a bad track record of forcing their will regardless of law, regardless of democracy, regardless of anything. I mean, you look at the last 8 years, my will be done. Leftism, uber alles. And look, you got these clowns, these Hollywood celebrity clowns coming, putting videos out now to try to tell democratically elected electoral delegates to not vote for the will of the people. It's just, first of all, by the way, I got such a kick out of that because I watched The West Wing, and I know many of you don't know what I'm talking about. Again, these celebs, and this is one more spoke in the wheel of the left not learning their lesson. Do you remember Beyonce? Do you remember all these celebs that were supposed to get Hillary Clinton across the finish line? It's my opinion that they cost her. They cost her votes. Condescending. They haul out the West Wing cast essentially with some other nobody B-list, stragglers, and they lecture us about the Constitution, Alexander Hamilton, and why it is their constitutional duty to not deliver the vote of their state, their state will, the voters in their state. I'm telling you guys, the ability to live in your own world and the ability to just make up your own reality is unquantifiable on the left. And I've been around these people like my whole professional career. I was in television. I'm a musician. I'm always around these people, and I'm in awe. I say this to them all the time. I'm like, do you realize that ping pongy, shoot a bullet in a steel reinforced room and watch it bounce around? That thinking is so unrefined and unedified, and the more elite, and they pat themselves in the back for this stuff. I just listened to an entire NPR hour where they build these cases all on their own presumptions. Their own presumptions of Donald Trump's mind, their presumptions of the conservative mind, their presumptions of the mind of the people in the cabinet. They speak for an hour on Aleppo. Ladies and gentlemen, and by the way, you're funding NPR. That's a big thorn in my craw, by the way. NPR speaks for an hour on Aleppo. 80 or 90 said speculatory statements about Donald Trump and hyperbolic, complete nonsense about Russia and this and that. Not one time did they talk about the fact that the sitting president had a red line that he came out with and then completely said, I didn't have that red line. Not one time did they even mention it. So not one time did they mention this, the two abysmal Secretary of States in this administration, Kerry, getting drug all over the place by Russia and by Assad, buying time as they slaughter and kill children in the streets. A sitting president, according to NPR and the leftist drones, is not responsible. The guy is literally still president as I speak to you. He's not responsible. No, Donald Trump is responsible. Zero power, zero policy making. These people have become untethered from reality. They just keep going down the rabbit hole, deeper and deeper in the Alice in Wonderland. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to talk about is the Russian hacker. The Russian hackers. But first, this is pre-election, ladies and gentlemen. This is when the Democratic statist media polls had her up, 10, 15 points, all fabricated. Clearly, we know that now. But this is them on election rigging, and I don't have the sound on this, but Obama specifically addressed Russian hacking before the election, week before the election. He's like, this is ridiculous. Anybody who says this is ridiculous, oh my God, our elections couldn't be touched by the Russians. That's ridiculous. How ridiculous is it?
Of course the elections will not be rigged. What does that mean? The federal government doesn't run the election process. States and cities and communities all across the country, they're the ones who set up the voting systems and the voting booths. And if Mr. Trump is suggesting that there is a conspiracy theory that is being propagated across the country, including in places like Texas, where typically it's not Democrats who are in charge of voting booths. That's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. And I don't think anybody would take that seriously.
Listen to that smug elitist, and then the press corps. This is your press. By the way, you're not done hearing the rest of that. It's going to be for the next 4 years. It's going to be how the press is mistreated, how Donald Trump isn't treating the press with respect, how Donald Trump is banning the press, and you're going to hear just a nonstop parade of that. This is the press, and they're high-fiving the administration. It's like a family reunion going on. I don't think any of those people are laughing right now. So what do we have after the election? Well, first, what was it? I think the first, if I recall, and I mean, these are coming at us so fast that forgive my short memory situation here, but I think right out of the gate, what was it? Was it white supremacists or something had something to do with the election? And then it was, I think they had the popular vote for a while there. They were hammering on that. It's Russian hacking now, except for their entire statement, and nobody's reporting it. Their entire statement is built on the fact that both sides were. First of all, there's zero evidence. Zero evidence. I'm going to repeat that. There is zero evidence that Vladimir Putin hacked any election nonsense at all. In fact, WikiLeaks founder just came out yesterday and said their source is, in fact, not a Russian. But they just keep moving forward. A week ago, they were like, the RNC got hacked too. And they didn't release any of that stuff. Clearly, then it comes out, RNC wasn't hacked. Fact-based, you can research this. RNC was not hacked. So everything they're saying is a lie. They just keep moving forward. They just keep saying it and saying it and saying it. One has to question, what's the purpose of this? Well, the purpose is not Russian hacking or American security. Or, as you can see, the president had zero interest in that before. Let's listen again.
I don't even really know where to start on answering this question. Of course the elections will not be rigged. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Of course they're not going to be rigged unless we lose. Of course, but we're up 11 points. That's not going to happen. Donald Trump's never going to become president. That's what this guy said. And again, in a flippant, elitist nose, sky high in the air, to the point of altitude where it's bleeding. Oh, Donald Trump never going to be president. No way. It's just pathetic. Nonetheless, this is today, ladies and gentlemen.
Did Russia really hack the Democratic National Committee emails in the hopes it would help Donald Trump?
Anything's possible.
Anything's possible now. I don't know. Let's have some more speculation and some more projections. And let's just throw it out there like glass and nails on the road towards the administration building its own policies. Donald Trump setting himself up. Let's just throw some doubt and some nonsense and some speculation.
President Barack Obama told NBC's Savannah Guthrie he couldn't comment on the specifics of the DNC email leak because the FBI is still investigating.
What we do know is that the Russians hack our systems.
Yeah, the Russians hack our systems now. No, again, I don't have the audio, but I so wish I did. This guy was literally saying, not figuratively saying, literally saying the Russians could not hack anything prior to the election. The intellectual dishonesty is so profound, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, is it not lost on anybody? Is it not lost on anybody that it is actually the DNC that's been for real caught rigging elections? It's just profound, the irony. The DNC stole the election. We don't speculate. We don't have to assume. This is provable. The DNC stole the election from its rightful candidate, Bernie Sanders. This is just too much. It's too rich. It's like the sweetest chocolate you don't want to swallow.
Our systems, not just government systems, but private systems. What I do know is that Donald Trump has repeatedly expressed admiration for Vladimir Putin.
Hillary Clinton's campaign manager said Sunday that experts told the campaign the Russian government was involved in the hacking and did it to influence the election.
Trump and his allies made changes to the Republican platform to make it more pro-Russian, and we saw him talking about how NATO shouldn't intervene to defend our Eastern European allies if they're attacked by Russia.
Trump.
Okay, not only is there no correlation between this, but you notice what they say. They make this accusation: Russians hacked the election. Then they go about, well, Trump has said some nice things about Vladimir Putin, a.k.a. Trump has allowed the Russians to infiltrate and disrupt our election. Zero proof. Absolutely. Those two things do not correlate. But they know the Democrat wants to hear what they want to hear. And all they need is doubt, and all they need is suspect. Donald Trump said some stuff about Vladimir Putin. Thus, the Russians affected our election. It's hilarious. Did the Russians cause Hillary Clinton to draw dozens of people to her rallies in the flyover states and the working parts of America? Did the Russians hack Hillary Clinton's personality and turn her into a reptilian, arsenic-like character by way of a candidate? Because if they did, I mean, we're doomed, right? I mean, that's technology that that the average person or the average mind hasn't even conceived.
Our Eastern European allies if they're attacked by Russia.
Trump responded with a number of tweets, including this one on Tuesday. In order to try and deflect the horror and stupidity of the WikiLeaks disaster, the Dems said maybe it is Russia dealing with Trump. Crazy. The Kremlin has also denied the allegations. For Newsy, I'm Lauren Stevenson.
Ladies and gentlemen, look, this is what I'm going to tell you. Here's what's the reality. The reality today, as I speak to you, is this. Donald Trump won the election. Democrats are delusional, detached from reality, and thus dangerous. Democrats are now somehow quoting and lauding the Constitution after 8 years of urinating on it. And what I suspect this is, there's multiple things. There's multiple things going on here. Democrats can't conceive of a world where they're not in power. They can't conceive of a world where conservative ideas are implemented because they've become so padded room isolated in their thinking and their elitism. But moreover, Aleppo is a bloodbath right now. The responsibility of that lies on the sitting administration. The responsibility of that lies on the foreign policy of this administration. This will go down as genocide because that's what it is. And it's the responsibility and it's the consequences of this president. So all this stuff is distractions. All this stuff is distractions. We don't need to speculate about what we know in regards to election fraud in the United States. We know that Democrats have fraudulently conducted primary elections. We know that. We know that these exact same media types that are out now pushing this Russian hacking narrative have colluded with the DNC, both in our national debates by feeding questions and hosts of other times. I just did some research. The New York Times reporter that is pushing all this nonsense is the very same guy that leaked information to Podesta and called himself a political hack. This is all nonsense. This is all, wait for it, fake news. Ladies and gentlemen, be people of fortitude, character, and courage, for we will need it. Listen, they have been defeated at the ballot box, but for the Democrats, it doesn't mean anything. If you're not bound by law, integrity, or intellectual honesty, or even the slightest bit of self-respect, you are a dangerous, rabies-bitten dog. Thank you for listening to the Brock Lawley program.
Join the Courage Culture. Visit Brock's YouTube channel for an intellectual arsenal against the lies of leftism.